But anyways, I talked with the meter reader. I saw him yesterday, and he said,
Why do you think having family meetings has been important to your farm?
I guess I'll answer first. It's important because we had new members coming in, meaning our wives, who needed to understand what was happening. That they weren't getting the full picture before. And just the communication aspect, because we could see tensions rising as all of us got married. It went from just being us beating on each other and arguing and fighting to having somebody poking us in the, our wives doing this or and it was getting to the point where they didn't feel comfortable talking with each other about things, because everybody didn't know the whole picture of what was happening, and especially where it's not a huge money-making operation, meaning farming isn't, and it's not a paycheck every week type operation. It's you get the money when you can, and there's a lot of other benefits to living on a farm and working on a farm that are non-monetary. So we needed to bring the whole group onto the same page, and I felt we were, and I think everybody did. We all, things were kind of going in the wrong, or they could have gotten a lot worse.
What is typically discussed at a family meeting?
It can range, the discussions at a family meeting could range from, what's happening with the cows and what do we have to do in order to improve their health or reduce their feed costs, to who's going to ultimately own this farm and how are we going to treat those people who are not farming but are our children living somewhere else in terms of the estate plan.
We'll go over the store sales first.
Is an agenda put together every time? And
As
what
you
could
can
you just
see,
run us kind of quickly through the typical meeting?
A typical meeting, like $10,000 left. Usually we go over the financial stuff, which is the dry part. Expenses, income for the month on the different businesses, whether it's the store, the retail store, or the farm itself, and then expenses for both, and then if there's anything out of the ordinary, and then we go from there into anything that anybody brings up at the time. Sometimes we have situations where somebody will write a formal agenda, and because they have a topic that they want to definitely discuss, and sometimes we get off on tangents, and you get to talking about something else. Typically, I will run the meeting, but I'm not, just to keep things moving. When we have a meeting, everybody shows up. When we have one of these formal.
So it's all brothers, spouses.
Yeah.
Right, mom, dad, this little guy.
That's why for that meeting we make it a point that everybody can make it. If we have to change the day, we do to accommodate.
So everyone's attendance is important.
Yeah, because it's important that we all, at that meeting, all the major stuff is being discussed, even if it's just touched on.
In other words, just to have a meeting and throw out numbers and what we're doing, and eating at the same time, and the phone's ringing and people running off the meetings. So having that notebook and that sheet was very important in that they could take it home and look at it.
If you were going to advise a farm family on doing family meetings, how would you advise them in getting it started?
Make it happen over a meal, because that tends to keep everybody happy if they're on a full stomach.
And after a good week, not a 90-degree, 100-degree day after the hay. Okay.
And the other thing is, it depends on how well they get along. If it's not, like we've always, we argue and bicker and stuff, but we always would come over to my folks' house to have dinner, the whole family. So it was a comfortable place, and everybody, there was no inhibitions about coming here. But if everybody kind of had that tension thing going, you might want to have it at some place that's not in one person's house or another. You might want to have it at the farm, or you might want to have it off at a restaurant. The first one until things get going.
So what would have happened if you hadn't had these family meetings?
It probably, the farm would have probably dissolved. It would have still been here, the physical structure, but I think you would have seen it dissolve as an entity with cows and milking and haying and so forth. But by having the openness and by constantly bringing in the new daughter-in-laws and wives, and as they matured too, I mean, you have that happening. It became a stronger place. Okay, and then with the arrival of the first grandchild, and then another one coming along, I mean, that adds just so much more. And now all of a sudden the aunts and uncles and now the family has grown. Okay, so what before was just brothers, okay, and daughter-in-laws or sister-in-laws, now you're aunts and uncles. So it's just a little more glue added to the family structure. The original reason was to bring the 3 daughter-in-laws into play with how the farm works. They see their husbands go off to work in the morning, come back tired, dirty, and I think in the beginning they didn't see anything being accomplished because they all sort of had their own jobs that they went to. And there had to be a communication going on with the daughter-in-laws. I mean, we've lived it here, all the boys, my wife and ourselves, and as each daughter-in-law came in, we had to explain everything all over how the family farm ran. And then, like any family, you had the first meetings were a little tense, okay, because it was like each wife was trying to protect their husband, you say, and who was doing more work than the other, and it got involved with days off and dollars and cents. So each meeting got better and better as we introduced dinner to it. And then sometimes when dinner couldn't be made in the house, we had pizza. So it sort of smoothed it over everything. And then after having a meal, we'd have the meeting, or before, whatever it worked out. And now I see smiles at the meetings, and people understand. So it took a number of years to get this figured out.
How comfortable do you think the spouses are getting involved?
I think now that after, the first 6 months where there was a lot of the
Come on, Pat. Come on, Pat.
even wanting the poking your husband to say what you've been discussing and arguing about at home. And
It
now,
wasn't just Pat though, but it was,
no, but I'm just saying, all of us, my wife's getting me with the knitting needle, saying, you're going to talk about that, right? Why has Mikey got one more day off this month than you did, Yeah. So, but now that we've been doing this on a regular basis, our wives are more comfortable discussing and bringing things up themselves at the meeting.
Boundaries, hierarchy, roles, and those are crucial in any kind of family functioning. And so when it's clear what the role of, say, the facilitator is of these family meetings, the kinds of parameters in terms of if there is a budget for the family, that there be a boundary around that, and that there be an inclusion of everyone's input, because if there's an alienation of a family member, that's going to be a problem. And often it might follow the structure of the family. If this is a member that typically is alienated or feels as though another sibling has been favored in the past, or if there has been some conflict between the parents, let's say that the heads of household are 2 parents, it isn't always that way, but if it is the case, then there might be some sort of triangle that goes on where one may be an effective leader in being democratic, getting everybody's input, be a good listener, or they may be a less effective leader in being either autocratic or too permissive in terms of not taking enough leadership in managing the family meetings. And if it doesn't go well, families tend to not have these meetings. And I think that goes for farm families or any family. However, when there is the complexity of a farm family, it becomes especially important to have these discussions about all sorts of matters, but the charge often is around finances. So role, boundaries, hierarchy, who's in charge of the meeting,
Right.
so forth,
Right, 'cause people
and
are so
also
busy
good
with
communication
work.
skills between the members.
Um,
For more information about family farm finances, go to familyfarmfinances.net.